I want to continue this conversation right now. Joining us is retired U.S. Navy Admiral James Stavridis, CNN senior military analyst. He's a former NATO Supreme Allied Commander as well. Admiral Stavridis, thanks very much for joining us. How significant is it that Prime Minister Netanyahu appears to have defied President Trump with these Israeli counterstrikes against Iran?
The way to look at it, Wolf, is examine each of the three contenders here. From an Iranian perspective, their goal at this point, not only to kind of defend their proxy, and as I always say, Iran will fight to the last Hezbollah member, but they legitimately want to take some of the heat off. But above all, they want to drive a wedge between the United States and Israel. So a few more strikes make sense to them. From an Israeli perspective, you have political pressure on the prime minister, who is facing elections early fall, and also continues to want to pound away in what he perceives as a window that he can do these strikes on Iran and certainly on Hezbollah to the north. And then from the U.S. side, President Trump is doing everything he can to get a ceasefire because gas prices are rising. The Brent crude is going up again today because of this back and forth. So bottom line in all of it, Wolf, I think we're going to have another cycle or two of this. It's kind of tactical back and forth. But my own view is that we still have a reasonable, call it 65% chance of getting to a deal. That's clearly what President Trump is shooting for.
He certainly is. Israel struck what's being described as a petrochemical plant inside Iran. Tehran says it will attack energy facilities across the entire region if Israel continues its attacks. How significant of an escalation would that be?
It would be significant, and already you have damage to the Gulf Arab infrastructure in Qatar, in UAE, in Saudi Arabia itself, that could take months to years to repair. Some of the big LNG, liquefied natural gas facilities, for example. So if the escalation goes after the Iranian energy production, they will retaliate against the Gulf Arabs. That'll make it even more difficult for President Trump to land the deal.
Today, the Iran-backed group, the Houthi rebels, claimed responsibility for a missile strike launched from Yemen right toward Israel. So we're seeing Iranian proxies take part in these new hostilities. Does that make a peace deal even harder to negotiate?
It absolutely does. It goes from being a game of checkers, kind of back and forth, U.S., Iran, some Israel mixed in, but now you're getting into that chessboard, and it might end up being the game of Go, the most complex board game in the world. I am very closely watching the Houthis, and you're smart to bring it up. It's kind of the Western Front in this war. It's the dog that hasn't barked. We worry appropriately about the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. If you don't like that, you're really not going to like a closure of the Suez Canal, which is what the Houthis could do by shutting down the Red Sea. So yes, I'm watching the Houthis very closely, and the degree of difficulty for President Trump to land this move is going up with every missile that is fired from down on the Arabian Peninsula.
Yeah, me too. I also want to ask you, while I have you, Admiral, about Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and the international criticism of his remarks at a D-Day anniversary ceremony in Normandy, France. He spoke at the American Cemetery, and he publicly criticized European leaders over their migration policies. Listen to this.
Sadly, today, different European beaches are stormed by different dangerous ideologies. Beaches in Spain, in Italy, in Greece, and Bulgaria. Boats and men arrive. When will European capitals do something about that invasion? Or is it too late? I pray not, and I believe not.
Admiral, these comments come about, 4 months or so after Hegseth skipped a key NATO ally meeting. You're a former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO. How healthy are America's alliances right now, specifically the NATO alliance?
Well, we haven't broken the transatlantic bridge. Greenland put a lot of strain on it. remarks like this will add to that strain. I feel that transatlantic bridge between the United States and our European allies, and with Canada, frankly, I feel that bridge kind of creaking, and this doesn't help. If I were talking to Secretary Hegseth, I'd say, look, if you have political, particularly essentially domestic disagreements with the Europeans, take it offline, take it sotto voce, take it off stage, but don't use sacred ground, the D-Day beaches, to make what are in effect domestic political complaints about your allies. I'll quote Churchill to conclude, Wolf. Churchill very wisely said, hey, it's always frustrating working with allies, trying to bring them along the course you want them to steer. But the only thing worse than having to deal with allies is not having allies. These kind of remarks put a lot of strain on that relationship. We ought to try and avoid that.
Yeah, enormous strain indeed. Admiral James Stavridis, thanks as usual for joining us.
Thanks, Wolf.